Hello students and welcome back to our class. In this video, we will discuss lesson 2 of chapter 1, Sociological Perspective of the Self. After this lesson, students are expected to explain the relationship between and among the self, society, and culture, describe and discuss the different ways by which society and culture shape the self, compare and contrast how the self can be influenced by the different institutions in the society, and lastly, examine oneself against the different views of the self that were discussed in the class. Before we proceed with our discussion, I want you to look at page 50 of your module. You will see activity 2, myself through the years. So I want you to do is paste a picture of you when you were in elementary, in high school, and now that you are in college. Below the picture, list down some characteristics of you that you remember. So just paste some photos of you when you were in elementary, high school, and now that you're in college. And then remember all those characteristics or how you were described when you were in those grades. And then list them down. And let's see if there will be differences. Okay? Of course, after doing activity 2, we have our analysis. So turn your module to page 51 and you will see activity 2, analysis. So after having examined yourself in its different stages, I want you to answer the following questions. We have 3 questions. Una, ano yung similarities in all the stages of yourself? Ano yung pare-pareho since elementary, high school, and then until now college? Meron ka pa din or similar pa din? Okay. Next, I want you to identify ano yung mga nagbago, ano yung differences. Okay, ano yung different elementary ka, ano yung nagbago nung nag-high school ka, and then nung college. And lastly, I want you to identify ano kaya yung possible reason of these changes. Okay, ano yung naging dahilan kung bakit nagkaroon ng pagbabago dun sa sarili mo. Before we formally start our discussion, kukwentuhan ko muna kayo. Okay, I will tell you the story about the 5 monkeys. Let's start our story with Once Upon a Time. O, diba? Lakas mga fairy tale. Anyway, so once upon a time, may group of scientists, naglagay sila ng 5 monkey in a cage. At sa gitna ng cage, naglagay sila ng hagdan, at sa taas ng hagdan ay may saging. Okay. Now, what do you think will happen? Siyempre, as monkey's instinct kick in, ang nangyari, nagunahan sila pag-akyat ng hagdan para kunin ang saging. However, every time may umaakyat na monkey sa ladder para kunin ang banana, ang gagawin ng mga scientists, babasain nila ng cold water yung rest ng monkeys. After some time, syempre nakahalata rin naman ng mga unggoy, parang wait lang. Every time may umaakyat ng ladder, kumukuha ng saging, binabasa tayo ng malamig na tubig. So after a while, ang ginawa ng mga monkeys, every time may umaakyat sa ladder, binubugbog nila. Kasi nga naman, parang ang unfair, ikaw yung makikinabang, pero kami yung paparusahan. So ganun yung ginawa nila after realizing the consequences of getting to the ladder and getting the banana. At dahil dito, okay, nung tumagal, no monkey dared to go up the ladder regardless of the temptation. Dito na ba natapos yung kwento? Siyempre hindi pa. Okay? Ang ginawa ng mga scientists, tinanggal nila si monkey 1 at pinalitan nila ng bago, si monkey 6. Siyempre, si monkey 6, bilang bago, hindi naman niya alam kung ano ang rules doon sa cage. Nakita niya yung ladder with banana on top. Ang initial reaction niya is to go up the ladder to get the banana, diba? Kasi insig mo yun, may pagkain doon, bakit di mo kukunin? Ano nangyari? Siyempre, sino monkeys 2 to 5, ang ginawa nila, pinugbog nila si monkey 6. Hindi alam ni monkey 6 bakit yun ginawa sa kanya. He has no idea kung bakit siya binubugbog for just going up the ladder. After a while, hindi na rin umakyat ng ladder si monkey 6 without knowing the reason why, diba? Alam lang niya, bubugbugin siya pag umakyat siya. So, nung hindi na siya umakyat, si Monkey 2, pinalitan ng bago, pumasok si Monkey 7. At ganun din yung nangyari. Every time umakyat siya, binubugbog siya, and then in the long run, di na rin siya umakyat without really understanding the reason why. Until mapalitan na lahat ng monkey. Ang natira na lang ay 5 new monkeys na never na-experience mabasa ng cold water. Pero alam nila that every time you go up the ladder, bubugbugin ka. What's surprising is actually the fact na nung 5 ng bagong monkeys yung natira, itong mga monkeys na to ay never na-experience ang mabasa ng malamig na tubig. Pero nabugbog sila every time umaakyat ng ladder. Pero dahil doon, every time may umakyat ng ladder, nakikibugbog na rin sila. Okay, they also hurt other monkeys that would try to go up the ladder without really knowing the reasons why. Okay, what was left was a group of 5 monkeys that even though never received a cold water, continued to beat up any monkey who attempted to climb the ladder. Now, if we could only talk to monkeys, okay, if we could ask them, why are you doing that? More or less, they will answer us with, I don't know, that's how things are done here. Now, my question to you is, does this sound familiar? Have you experienced the same thing? Siyempre, hindi yung nabugbog, okay? Have you experienced the same thing? May mga bagay ba tayo na tinuro sa atin, pero hindi natin alam bakit at ano yung purpose nila? Usually, we can observe this sa mga pamahiin o kaya mga lumang paniniwala. Sabihin sa atin, pag may patay, dapat daw yung mga bata itinatawid sa patay. Pero alam ba natin yung purpose nito? Or are we following without really knowing the reasons why? Okay, that's the purpose of our discussion for today. The story of the 5 monkey ay hindi basta kwentong barbero lang. This is actually an experiment conducted by J.R. Stephenson way back 1967, titled Cultural Acquisition of a Specific Learned Response Among Rhesus Monkey. So in this video, in this lesson, we want to explore how other people or our society and culture affects our behavior, our personality, and ultimately our perception of the self. In this video, we will discuss 3 sociologists, George Mead, Charles Cooley, and Erving Goffman. Itong tatlong sociologists na to, they look into how the self, the society, and the culture are interrelated. Kung paano natin binubuo ang sarili natin sa pamamagitan ng interaksyon natin sa iba't ibang tao, kung paano ang opinyon ng ibang tao ay nakakaapekto sa perception natin ng sarili natin, at kung paano natin tinatry kontrolin ang opinyon ng ibang tao tungkol sa atin. Ang una sa ating listahan ay ang American philosopher and social theorist na si George Mead. He proposed the theory of the social self. George Mead believed that the self is void of society. The self is inseparable from the society and bound up with communication. It builds on social experience. This is largely a matter of taking the role of other with increasing sophistication, broadening out from significant others to the greater complexity. Ano yung gusto niyang sabihin dito? Sasabi niya dito na yung self cannot be separated from the society. The society and the self, they come together. And we learn from experiences, from social experiences. Kaya naniniwala siya that the self is a social entity. Naniniwala si Mead that the self is created through social interaction. Nabubuo natin yung sarili natin sa pamamagitan ng makipag-interact with other people. Siyempre, nagsisimula to with our significant others. Mostly yung family natin. And then, yung process ng learning na to ay nagsimula kasabay ng matuto tayo na magsalita. The moment we learn the language is also the moment we learn to develop ourselves. 3 points were raised by Mead in his social self-theory. Una, sabi niya, the self emerges from social experience, it's not part of the body, and it does not exist at birth. If you remember John Locke and his concept of tabula rasa, medyo similar sila. Kasi, pinupoint out dito that we only begin to start developing ourselves when we interact with other people. Pangalawa, social experience involves communication and the exchange of symbols. People create meaning. Okay? We create meaning. Anong ibig sabihin nito? If you remember the term selfie that we use right now, hindi naman siya word dati. We put meaning to words. Pero ngayon, part na siya ng dictionary. Example, the number sign. It was called number sign way back. Pero ngayon, we call it hashtag. So, nag-iiba-iba yung meaning. And what's important in the self-theory or social self-theory ni Mead is that communication plays an important role in that. Lastly, to understand intention, you must imagine the situation from another person's point of view. By taking the role of other, the self is reflective and reflexive. Ano ibig sabihin? Capable tayo to reflect on our actions. Pwede nating isipin, ay tama ba yung ginawa ko? Other organisms are not capable of that. But as human beings, we are capable of reflection. According to Mead, there are different stages in the development of the self. Ang unang stage, according to him, is the preparatory stage. Ito yung stage kung saan ginagaya ng bata ang ginagawa ng iba. Halimbawa dito ay yung close open. Pag ginawa natin to sa harap ng bata, gagawin din nila. The second stage is the play stage. This is where children pretend to play the role of a significant other, usually yung parents. As you recall, siguro nung bata kayo, naglaro kayo ng bahay-bahayan. Kung saan ako ang nanay, ikaw ang tatay. At doon, nagpapanggap tayo na tayo yung mga magulang natin. And we internalize the roles and we pretend to be them. That is included in the play stage. The third one is the game stage. This is where children play in organized games and take on the perspective of the generalized other. Ibig sabihin, hindi na lang yung mga taong malapit sa atin, but also general perspective. Halimbawa dito is when we play team games. Okay? And then we internalize the different roles. Ako, taya. Okay, ikaw naman, tatakbo ka and then habulin kita. Pag natag kita, ikaw naman yung taya. So we learn rules and we internalize the rules. And then we use that. Ano ba yung generalized other? Yung generalized other is the perspective and expectations of a network of others, or basically the society. Ano ba ang ina-expect sa atin ng society? Pag babae ka, dapat ganito ka. Pag lalaki ka, dapat ganito ka. Ano nangyayari? We internalize those expectations and use it to shape our own behavior. This results to the dual nature of the self, or the belief that we experience the self as both subject and object, the I and me. Ano yung pinagkaiba? Yung I is spontaneous and unpredictable. Ito yung part mo kung saan wala kang pakialam sa society. You're only concerned about yourself. On the other hand, you have your me. Yung me naman is the part of you that's been socialized to think beyond yourself. Hindi na lang sarili mo yung iniisip mo, but also the expectations of your society. The second concept we will discuss is the looking glass self. This is proposed by Charles Cooley. According to Cooley, one's sense of self depends on seeing oneself reflected in interaction with others. So, di ba? Parang tongue twister. Bakit niya nasabi yun? Let's find out. Si Charles Cooley at si George Mead are colleagues. Ano ibig sabihin nun? They work together. Okay. Ano ba yung meron sa looking glass self? Sabi sa looking glass self, may notion na yung self mo develops based sa perception ng ibang tao, based on their evaluation and appraisal. Ano yung ibig sabihin nun? Sabi niya, kung ano yung tingin mo sa sarili mo, nakadepende yun sa kung ano yung tingin sa'yo ng ibang tao. Paano nangyari yun? Limbawa, sinabihan ka na, ay, ang galing mo namang tumula. You will internalize that and then you will think, magaling akong tumula. It's because of the perception and evaluation of other people. Imagine having different mirrors. At yung mga salamin na yon represents how other people see you. Sabi dyan yung college friends mo sees you as a smart person. Diba nakasalamin represents smart. Tingin nila ang talino mo. Your boss sees you as someone beneath him or her. Ibig sabihin, tingin niya mas mataas siya sa'yo or mas mababa ka sa kanya. Your parents sees you as an angel, feeling nila ang bait-bait mo. And your online friends sees you as a devil, feeling nila ang sama-sama mo. At lahat ng perceptions na to ng iba't ibang tao, you internalize them. Pinagsasama-sama mo and you create your own definition or your own description of yourself. Here's another example. Dito naman, your college friend sees you as someone strong. Diba? Ang lakas-lakas mong tao. On the other hand, yung boss mo, ang tingin sa'yo, ang hina mo. Your parents, ganun pa din, ang tingin sa'yo, ang bait-bait mo, and your online friend still sees you as someone na masama. Magkakaiba yung tingin, magkakaiba yung perspective, pero lahat yon ina-absorb mo. Lahat yon in-internalize mo kung paano ka makita or paano ka tingnan ng ibang tao. How they perceive you. If we look at this picture, it also depicts looking glass self. Ano yung sabi dyan? We imagine how we appear to other people. Diba? Inisip natin ano yung tingin sa atin ng ibang tao. Pag yung evaluation na yon is favorable or tingin natin maganda yung tingin sa atin ng tao, nagkakaroon tayo ng positive na self-concept. Nagiging positive din yung tingin natin sa sarili natin. At pag tingin natin, negative yung tingin sa atin ng ibang tao, nagiging negative yung self-concept natin. Or nagiging negative yung tingin natin sa sarili natin. Yung last concept natin for lesson 2 is from Erving Goffman. Sabi niya, constructing situations and drama. Yan, gusto natin yan, diba? Give me drama. According to Goffman, people routinely behave like actors on a stage. Every day, social life becomes theatrical. There are roles, script, and actions. Daily life is a series of stagecraft rules. So kay Goffman, kinompare niya yung buhay ng tao into theater. Kaya sabi niya, constructing situations and drama. Naniniwala siya that meaning is constructed through interaction, and he proposed the concept of interaction order. Ano yung interaction order? It's what we do in the immediate presence of others. Imagine this. Nakita mo si crush. Anong una mong gagawin? What do you do? Okay? Kinikilig ka ba na parang hindi masalihan? O nagtatago ka? Nakita mo yung kagalit mo. Anong gagawin mo? So, interaction order ay yung bagay na una natin ginagawa pag nakita natin yung isang tao. His concept focuses on how individuals take on roles and act them out. Kanino at bakit? Ina-act natin to sa mga tao sa paligid natin. And he called them our audience. Bakit? Because we want to give a positive impression sa audience natin. And he called this concept dramaturgy. Sabi pa niya, gusto nating kontrolin kung paano tayo nakikita ng ibang tao. And this is what he called impression management. About 400 years ago, nakuha ni Shakespeare yung idea ni Goffman. Sabi niya, all the world is a stage, and all the men and women merely players. They have their exits and their entrances, and one man in his time plays many parts. Kinumpara rin niya yung life natin to a stage, to a play. At tayo ay mga actors lang in this life. Meron tayong exits and entrances. Kasi hindi naman tayo permanent sa buhay ng isang tao. So sometimes, merong mga tao na nawawala sa buhay natin or nawawala tayo sa buhay nila. Meron ding entrances. We get to know other people. We get to know new people. At pwede mo rin sabihin na yung exit natin is when we die at yung entrance natin ay nung pinanganak tayo. And we play many parts. Pwedeng anak, estudyante, kaibigan, boyfriend or girlfriend, and others. Okay, yun yung concept na nakuha or na-capture ni Shakespeare. Goffman identifies the following components in his theory of impression management. How do we try to impress or control the other people's impression of us? Okay, una, we have the front stage. And then, we have the backstage. Anong meron sa front stage? Sa front stage is where we act, where we play our roles. Basically, this is our stage. The backstage, on the other hand, is what we do when no one is looking. Pag wala ng tao, sino tayo? How do we act? What's our behavior? Additionally, Goffman pointed out that each definition of a situation lends itself to a different approach and the consequences are real. Ano yung gustong sabihin dito? Imagine this. You are with your friends at yung mga kaibigan mo mahilig mag-inom. Because you want to fit in, mag-inom ka din. At syempre, ayaw mo namang patalo, 'di ba? Dapat ikaw pa ang last man or woman standing. Okay? Kasi you want to impress your friends. Pag-uwi mo sa bahay, magpapanggap ka na hindi ka nag-inom, na wala kang tama. Because you want your parents to think na ang bait mo. Pagpasok mo sa school, very active ka because you want to impress your teachers. So we have these different roles na ina-act natin. And why do we do that? Because we want to impress other people. At paano natin impress yung ibang tao? Iba't iba rin yung ways natin. So yun yung gustong i-point out ni Goffman. Sabi pa niya, the self is a social construction dependent of the situation. That's the end of our discussion for Lesson 2, Sociological Perspective of the Self. In our next video, next week, we will discuss Psychological Perspective of the Self. Thank you for watching. If you have questions, you may email me at arceliaslarateresa@gmail.com or you may just leave a comment down below. Bye, class!